Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Harmonica UK. Our next guest is an absolutely incredible harmonica player from Israel, Roni Eytan. I had heard the name because of Brendan Power's harmonica. And then, relatively recently, like in the last 6 months, I saw a video on Facebook which blew my mind. And I'm going to play that video to you, and then Roni will take over the reins from me. But just to say that the broad picture is a young Israeli player. He's been and studied in America. He's a phenomenal virtuoso as a jazz player and his own compositions, and also his music is rooted in the Middle East where he comes from, and we have a lot of videos lined up which he suggested for me to play during his lecture. But before further ado, I would like to just go ahead and show you this video, which will give you a taste. This is the first video that I saw of Roni, and this is him playing a saxophone solo. He's learnt the actual saxophone solo from a contemporary saxophonist called Ben Wendell. So Ben Wendell, if you Google him, has got some incredible compositions, modern guy, very unusual composer, harmonically and rhythmically very sophisticated. And when I heard Roni playing this, it blew my mind, because this has taken a harmonica, possibilities of a harmonica, to a different level in my consciousness. And I've owned a harmonica since 1972. So you never stop learning. And here's Roni. So that's the short version, folks. I'd like you to give him a hand, because that's pretty incredible, I think. Whether it's to your taste musically, it's not bluegrass, but it's something else. Roni, over to you. Could you start by telling us a bit about where you began on the harmonica?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Adam. First of all, yeah, thank you. It's great. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here today. Um, yeah. So how I started with the harmonica. Well, um, I was as a kid, I wanted to play music. I guess when I was around the age of 10 or so, um, I went to my parents and I told them that I want to play the trumpet. And that's actually because I heard the Sergeant Pepper album, and I wanted to play the trumpet. And long story short, I first started to play the recorder flute, and then went to the trumpet. Didn't really work well for me. I mean, it wasn't digging it, I guess, and I stopped. And then later on, a couple of years later, when I was around 14 or 15, a lot of my friends in high school were playing some instruments like drums, guitar, piano, and I wanted to play something too. So I didn't want to go I had their memory of my parents renting a trumpet, and then I have to return it after me not sticking with it. So I thought, let's start smaller this time. Maybe, just with a harmonica came to mind. I had memory of someone playing it, and actually a character from a cartoon that I loved that played the harmonica. So just started it, and I fell in love with music in a stronger way, more profound way, when I started. I was lucky to get into a music program. Don't know how they accepted me because I was only playing for a few months. And I fell in love with dealing with music, discovering music, and instead of like switching to a different instrument, like a, like more conservative instrument. So like, in the music academy world, I chose to stick with it. I was lucky to have teachers who encouraged me to stick with it. I was also lucky to have a teacher, first of all. That's another thing. So, like a teacher, his name is Elisha Avshalom, who when I wanted to start to play the harmonica, he was, my father actually found out, looked who's around, and he was here teaching harmonica, and he gave me like the first bass, how to start with it. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you, Roni. Shall we play another video?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, tell us a bit about this video called Tuchia Grib. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah.
Tuchia
Pretty
Grib.
good. Yeah. Tushia Grib.
With you have two musicians. I believe that this was recorded in America. You had these two musicians, Redha Ben Abdallah and Laith Siddiq.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty interesting video because it shows idiomatically, I think, what what your roots are. So let's have a listen to that. Fantastic. Tell us about that, Roni.
Yeah. So this was a piece, an instrumental piece, obviously, segment of it. That's coming from the Arabo-Andalusian tradition from North Africa, and this is specifically from the Algerian tradition, from the classical Algerian music, basically. And growing up here, it's a very diverse place. There's a lot of multicultural roots in this place, and there's a lot of music that came, that I was lucky to listen to from an early age, coming from different traditions, both traditional music and a lot of non-traditional music from all over the place. That's kind of the thing. When you grow up here, you absorb a lot of things. Also depends how much you're interested. But I was pretty early on. I was really fascinated by the amount of the richness of culture here. So this specifically music from North Africa is present here. There are a lot of people that the roots are from there, from Morocco, from Algeria, and and yeah, and I heard this music from an early stage, and at some point I started to study. I remember going, like when I was a teenager, going to concerts here in Jerusalem and hearing like great masters of this, like local people, and I always loved it. And at some point I started to study it seriously and really kind of dive deep into it. There are also different traditions. This is specifically the North African Andalusian tradition. There's a lot. You can find a lot of traditions here. You can find the Arabic Makam tradition. You can find from all over. Basically, that's kind of the beauty here. So and I had periods of time where I kind of was diving into different parts, different traditions. But this one, the North African Andalusian tradition, Algerian tradition, is really being something that I was diving into. And these musicians are incredible. First of all, Reda Ben Abdallah is a Algerian French musician, and he's like a real master of this music. He's playing the instrument called quitra, which is a lute that is coming from the classical Algerian music. And the other musician is incredible musician as well. His name is Laith Siddiq. He's the violinist and from Jordan originally, and incredible player coming from background of classical music and Arabic Makam, and also playing jazz and a lot of things. And so this specific recording happened in Boston, actually, where I was living, and Laith was living as well. We were both studying in Berklee College of Music, and Reda was visiting, and someone told me, and I was like, wow, like someone, like a great musician from this tradition that I love is here. So we kind of met, started playing, and then I suggested during this recording, we knew this piece, we thought it too late, just happened. And yeah.
Great. And, to my Western ears, that's not an AABA song form.
Yeah.
So, how do you could you maybe play a line and tell us how you think of it if you were teaching it to someone, just for that specific piece? Because it seems like an enormous feat of memory.
Yeah.
To everybody's just, you're not reading. I'm just seeing everybody playing this continuous, amazing line.
Yeah. And this specific one is especially long and kind of this specific piece is like a one that's challenging, and people play differently, different places, coming from different schools. Like if you'll just call this piece, some people will like there are different ways you can do this. So yeah, I could think about it in section. It's been a while since I played it, but like
Could you play us like a little blast just for now?
yeah. That's the first phrase right there.
Right. Okay.
Um, yeah. So yeah, how I would go about this, it's learning it slow and learning each part separately, and then kind of putting them together and listening a lot of time to the recording, playing it with people. It's yeah.
Well, we'll come to how you practice and how you, your sort of working methods. But the other thing we talked about, Roni, was harmonicas. And many of us know your name here in the UK because you collaborated with our very well-known beloved Brendan Power to make a harmonica which played microtonally. Now, most of us can struggle to play in tune tonally.
Maybe we can go to YouTube for a second and play a segment of that, because it's too bad I
Oh,
don't have
okay.
that one here.
Okay.
Maybe just a short one, just to
Yes.
yeah,
So,
because that's a really special instrument. I mean, that's
right.
so I was studying like different makam music that requires
Hmm.
microtones. So and I was doing it back then. I was really working on bending, which was good, but wasn't as satisfying for me. So I was someone recommended me to actually contact. She said there is this guy Brandon Power. I was familiar with him, but they said maybe talk to him and see what he thinks about it. And long story short, I emailed him, sent him some recording. We started talking, and basically we started a journey of having now this instrument. I In the beginning he really liked it, but wasn't sure if it was possible, and obviously I didn't know, and yeah, it was quite amazing.
Great. I think I've got it here. Let's have a look. That's a fantastic sound. Wow. It sounds, you could be on a hill in the desert and in the night with the stars and hear that sound. You transport us. It's very evocative.
Yeah, and that was quite amazing. I mean, that was like a history, that moment. It was pretty crazy. Like when I got it, I commissioned the first one. And he made it, and it was incredible. Yeah, and Brandon is amazing, absolutely incredible. And I had a time when I was focusing on it a lot. Then I kind of shifted to other things, but I'm gonna go back to it. Actually, I'm planning on pretty soon. Now that I'm back in Israel and I'm playing more folk music that requires it. Slowly more after a couple of years of doing it less. So it's gonna come back. Yeah.
Right. So, Roni, while we're on the subject of harmonicas, present us with your axes. What are your harmonicas of choice?
All right. So beside of the microtonal one, I usually play regular chromatics, mostly the 12 holes in recent years, but I mean in past years, but recent years I started adding the 16 holes. So yeah, and I played the G48 model 12 hole, and I played the 16 hole series. And this one I just got actually these wood covers from Wheels Make. Just got them last week, but it's the G48. Yeah.
Right. And I've never played a Sirius, but I believe that they've got a shorter travel in the slide. Is that one of the reasons why you play it, or is it the sound, or both?
Actually, I think I play the Sirius, the 16 hole version, and I believe that if I'm not wrong, I may be wrong, but I believe that this one actually has the same length. The stroke length is the same as the G48, and I think that the shorter stroke is for the 12 hole series. I may be wrong, but I only played the 16 hole one. But I think this one has the same stroke. But no, the reason I just needed this, I was after playing for many years playing the 12 holes. I needed the 16 holes. Actually, first for some folk music, I needed some of these lower notes. Like I needed to go down to A, for instance, to play, because every time I was jumping high to kind of, sometimes, you know, I would just need one note. I would need B natural, you know, that kind of ends here. You have C, the last one. I would need the B under it. And because of that, I had to take the whole thing up. And you know, this music is like, it's modal. So I needed the 16 holes, and someone recommended me to get the Sirius, and I loved it. It's a great instrument.
Mm-hmm. How do you know where you are on the harmonica?
Ha! Great question. I guess that's a challenge. That's a really good question, because
I mean, when you pick it up and put it in your mouth, do you know exactly where you are anytime? Is that like muscle?
G, C.
Yeah.
But that's because that's after years and years of memory, like muscle memory, I guess. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, sometimes it's like, sometimes I pick it up and I think I know where I am, and oh, surprise. I mean, it still happens, you know?
I'm glad to hear that even someone like you.
Oh, no, yeah, it happens to me, yeah.
And tell me as well, I think this will interest some of us technically, Roni, is that in order to play those very fluent lines, your harmonica has to be set up brilliantly, surely. I mean, like wind savers, gapping, all of that kind of thing. Do you do that yourself, or do you have a technician? Here in England, we have John Cook. We're all reliant on John Cook. I've just got my harmonicas back from John, and they're in incredible condition. But what do you do in Jerusalem?
I'll tell you something, actually. These instruments, the G48 and the Sirius, I don't do anything with them.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I don't do, I haven't done gapping. And there is one thing that I'm really big on. The slide has to be very smooth and easy for me. I mean, also other things, also, of course, air tightness and intonation, all this is all very important. But talking about in being able to play like fluently, especially like more like faster lines, I want to forget that I'm pressing the slide. That's kind of my goal. And when I get a harmonica and it's like I need to work hard to press the slide, for me it's not right. Like when you play the trumpet, for instance, like a good conditioned trumpet, this thing is really smooth. You don't have to work hard to press it. It's already hard enough to play the harmonica, to hit the right notes, and if you also have to work hard to press it, just adds another barrier. So that's very important for me. I make sure my harmonica, like I clean it pretty frequently. I also use oil, like a small amount of Suzuki slide oil, this one. And and in general, I like the tension not to be very strong of the spring. Yeah.
Great. Looking at our further videos, one of the videos that we're going to look at is called Ramel Maya.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that before I play it.
Yeah. The actual full name of the song is called A Tale in Ramel Maya. Ramel Maya is actually the name of the, you can say, mode. It's not really mode. It doesn't really doing justice to it to call it mode, but it's like a tonal center, a little similar to Makam, Arabic Makam, but not 100%. This comes again from the Andalusian tradition, specifically from the Algerian Andalusian tradition. And this is a piece of mine that I wrote inspired. I already wrote it like 4 years ago, so I composed it, and it was recorded already 3 years ago. This is my piece composed by some of the motifs coming from Ramel Maya, but also with a lot of other influences, jazz influences. And it also has some traditional players as well as jazz musicians, all coming from Jerusalem, great musicians in this. It's a short segment. The full piece is like 9 minutes, this recording, but yeah.
Okay. So this is the Tale of Ramel Maya. Fantastic, man. Man, that's a cutting edge. That's so wonderful to hear.
Maybe I can just give a short example of like of Ram and Maya. Very
Great,
short, just
lovely. Yeah,
because I talked about this thing, like more just.
yeah.
So this will be like a very short intro,
Mm-hmm.
introducing this. So this is our tonal center D.
Mm-hmm.
This is like
Beautiful,
little introduction in Ram and Maya.
beautiful. So
Thank
now
you.
we began to see some of your more modern kind of compositional techniques, and also contemporary musicians. So the next piece, which I'd like to play, which you're going to go into some detail about, is from the Jerusalem Jazz Festival with your band, which I believe was 2020.
True. Yeah.
Is that
Yeah. About a year ago.
correct? And this is folks. This is another mind blowing piece of playing. Have a listen to this. I mean, that's just incredible too. I love that.
Thank
Um,
you.
so we were actually going to look at some of that, weren't we,
Yeah.
Roni? Because folks, I must tell you this: that Roni has sent me the the music for this particular for this particular composition, and I think you're going to talk us through some of it. It's called a modern folk tale. So
Yeah.
let's I'll share the screen and talk us through some of it, and maybe we can all try and have a go at it and join you on stage. Only
Yeah,
joking.
exactly. Yeah, I thought this can be a nice example for me to break down my process. I know we're short in time,
Yeah.
but I'll try to do it quick.
No, we're good. We're fine for time.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So this is it's part of a longer piece that's called a modern folk tale, but this is the soli section.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of line that we play in unison in this recording, me and the pianist.
Yeah.
And so when let's use this as an example for something. We want to practice this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let's look at the first line. I'm going to play it very slow.
Okay.
Okay, one more time.
Right.
You see, it's the top line, the very first bar, and second beginning of the second bar. So the way I would practice this, I would break it down. I won't practice the full phrase. For instance, if I want to get to the point where I can play it faster, like the recording,
Mm-hmm.
I would break it down to tiny bits. For instance, the first three notes. You see the very first, there's
Yeah.
double
These
D.
ones here.
Exactly. Slowly, I will get it to tempo. Now, I'm going to do a speeded version of it, but this can be over a span of days or weeks. Now, when I will practice it, I'll probably practice it with a metronome. Usually when I work on things like that, I like to practice a couple things in the same time. So I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I'm probably going to do a time exercise where actually, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm going to put the metronome, but only going to give me 1 beat per bar. So it's going to have to feel my internal beat stronger. Now, okay, let's say we got that. So let's connect it to the next part. Let's add another note. Another one. Another one. Another one. Slowly I'm building. I'm doing like a speeded version, but this is how I would practice this until eventually I get it, the full one. And I'm stressing the point. I'll practice it slow first, going to a faster speed very slowly. Because when you can play something solid, really, really solid, slow, then you can actually play it fast. But most of us, including me, want to already play it fast before it's there yet. We want to run before we can walk. That doesn't really bring best results in my experience. Now, this is one way. This is basically the way that I would practice this line. But what I want to show is how I can make basically this solo is built on phrases that I play or that I heard or that I want to play. Now, I can take something like this and make a full exercise routine of this phrase. So something that I'm really big on is actually taking like a phrase like this and then moving it to different keys. So I'm fluent. So later when I improvise and I hear something, you know, I able to acquire this. This is how kind of, you know, a player's a player that's improvised language is being built in my experience. Being able to play something and move it around. We do it a lot in jazz. So I would take something like this and I would move it in different way. Let's take the first 4 notes. Actually, let's take the first 5 notes. Now what I would do, I would try to move it in different keys, okay? So I'm thinking of this in E flat. First thing was to understand what's happening here. So I'm seeing it, the tonality is E flat, the first chord is C minor over E flat, which I kind of see like E flat 6 chord. And this scale, this fast line, kind of implies a Lydian if we're in E flat Lydian, kind of a. This kind of implies this. So I would take this and I would move it to different keys, thinking about this, the tonal center. Okay, E flat. Starting from the 7th degree, the first note is D, right? Degree below the tonic. Then going to the tonic, then going to the 3rd of this degree of the scale, G, and then going to the sharp 11, or the raised 4th, which is part of the Lydian scale. Now let's do it in another key. Let's do it in D, half step below. Now let's do it a 4th up in A flat. Another 4th up, D flat, and so on. And I would practice things like that gradually. And I feel like that kind of that's how I built a lot of my language, my abilities. Yeah. This kind of I try to kind of squeeze this in a whole process in a short, yeah.
So Roni, I have $1 million question for you, which is that,
Go ahead.
as you know, those of us that have played a harmonica, chromatic a bit, it's very easy to do certain things on certain keys. So, you know, if you go like, Now that's in A flat, and it's very easy because you've got that little slide. Now, if I try to do that a semitone up,
True.
it sounds messy. Now, my question to you is, do you do you ignore whether it's like combination of blow, draw, slide? Do you just play the notes as if they're all equal?
That I agree with you. That's indeed the $1 million question, because that's a tough one. That's like part of our struggle with this instrument. It's not balanced at all. I mean, every instrument is like that, but I think this one is a particular case of this. Yeah, wow. You know, I tell you what. I tell you how I see it. When I practice, when I shed, my goal is to make everything balanced as I can. So ideally, theoretically, to be able to play this phrase beautifully, sounding the same on every key. Now, this will never happen because this is not how this instrument is built. So in real life, some phrases will sound better in one key than another key, but I'm shedding every day to kind of minimizing this gap, basically. And the more
Right.
I shed it and find like creative ways to go about it and shed it very methodically and slow, I feel like I'm able to close this gap between them, between the phrase, the keys that sound nice and the one that it's maybe more challenging. And
That's
that's my
really
approach.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Um, I'm going to press on now a bit because one of the other things when I was exploring your repertoire, the things you've done, is I came across a wonderful video of you playing with the big band run by Danilo Perez. And those of us into jazz and contemporary jazz will know that Danilo Perez has been the musical director for one of the greatest jazz musicians that ever lived, Wayne Shorter, and he's just an incredible person. And you studied with him at Berkeley, and I'd like to play a little edit which I made of this performance of you playing and improvising in a big band context. I think it's a really, really wonderful example of seeing the harmonica in a big band context. So this is, and I'll ask you about it afterwards. Tell us a bit about that, Roni. That's incredible.
Thank you very much. Wow, that was fun to me. I haven't seen that in a minute, and just remember the joy of playing with Danilo. Wow, kind of was a whole world, opened a whole world for me.
And you
Uh,
went on tour with him, didn't you?
yeah, a couple tours. Yeah, I was playing with him for about 2 years, like on and off, and was the same time that I was studying with him, and pretty incredible experience. I mean, I first started when I was like 23, and started touring all over the world and playing with one of the greatest masters around of this music, and incredible, inspiring artist, human being. Yeah, it was deep. It definitely was a big part of shaping how I am as a musician. As a just yeah, it was an amazing experience. Danilo is a lot of lessons on stage, a lot of lessons that are not in the classroom as well. Yeah, too many to count, but just like really in a deep, profound way. Especially if if I try to point to have a point there, it's like I think being on stage with him and seeing how he's willing to take risks. For him, it's not so much about necessarily getting a specific perfect result, but more about the experience, the freedom, getting the and also connecting with the audience and taking them on this journey, and that's the beauty of jazz, I think. Even freedom. It's kind of like that performing. It can go so many ways. When performed with him, was really, you go on stage, you don't know how things would turn out to be, and he writes amazing music. Yeah.
Great. And so, Ronnie, turning to your own band and your recordings, you're recording an album, and one of the videos which I really enjoyed, which you drew my attention to, was um, a track called Elegy for Saba.
Mm.
Can you tell us a bit about that, and then I'll play the video?
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, this is the piece that's going to be recorded on my album, my first album, and it's going to be recorded in the next few months. And it's a piece that I wrote, started writing 2 years ago, but finished it about a year ago. And I wrote it in the memory of my grandfather. Actually, Saba means grandfather in Hebrew. And he passed away 2 years ago. And it's a very personal piece for me. I also felt like I was composing it in a time where I was growing a lot as in composing music. I was studying composition in LA with a great teacher. His name is an incredible musician, Tigran Hamasyan, who is one of my favorite people around, musicians. And I was studying with him specifically composition, and this piece, it has a lot of influences, it has a lot of motifs in it, and also improvisation, improvised section. If you This is, I guess, in a more subtle way than Telin Ram El Maya, but if you listen closely and you're familiar with these sounds, you might find also some of the phrases that have, there have some of their the sound has also some folk roots to it. Some of the phrases have have this influence, like all the music that I feel, like most of my music, I feel has it in some sort of way. Yeah, so this is an Elegy for Saba with the great cellist Mayush Viro and Daniel Schwarzer, the great pianist, both from here, from Jerusalem, and it was recorded here in Jerusalem.
Great. Before I play this, Roni, I've just had a look at the chat, and we will take some questions. But you know, I'm just going to put. Sridhar asks you: did you study harmonica at Berkeley, or were you studying music?
Yeah, well, I was harmonica was my main instrument. I was studying music, I would say, but on a harmonica. So kind of I didn't. With that being said, like I didn't have a harmonica teacher, but when I was there, but I was studying with great musicians on other instruments I was trying to kind of get what they're saying, what they're doing, and transport it to this instrument, which is basically what's my journey been about most of this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So now I'm going to play Elegy for Saba. This is an excerpt from a longer version,
Yeah, and I believe this is
which
from like around the solo section starts, right?
yes. Wow, that's incredible. Very beautiful. Very
Thank you.
beautiful. I use the well-worn phrase, it's a pity we can't all speak. I speak for everyone here today when I'm sure it's very moving. Yeah, weird thing about Zoom. It's a silent appreciation. Good. Ronnie, we're coming kind of close to the end of the session. There's one more video to play, which is a compilation of your performance at the Jazz Festival in Jerusalem. Perhaps would you like to talk about that and about the members of your band?
Yeah, yeah, sounds great.
Great. So it seems to me like you're able to connect with some incredible musicians, whether they're older people, like masters like Danilo Perez, or whether they are musicians from the Middle East with specialized like folk interest and skills, or like very modern jazz players. So it sounds like the modern jazz cats in your band are, I mean, they're incredible.
Yeah, they're great musicians. Yeah, and that's the truth. I love a lot of, you know, a lot of kinds of music, and there are. This is also part of my musical world. There are different parts of it,
Hmm.
and I think that's a beauty in music. Like I like to play with some folk musicians. Like today, I had earlier this day, I had a concert with a group of musicians, more coming from like the folk. Some of them all from different backgrounds. Some of them more from like folk music, and this was actually a beautiful original music by this band, Jerusalem band called Écoute, like French listen for
Aha.
listen. Great band, you should check them out. And um, and yesterday I was playing like a jazz gig with great players here of a pianist called Roy Moore, and and that's what I love. I love doing all these different things, and regarding playing with older musicians, that's always been big for me. I always thrive to play with masters, with people that are just more experienced with me. I feel this is the best way to learn. This is kind of the old way to learn. I feel like today it's a little more rare, and I feel like sometimes with some of my, like the younger generation or younger than me, maybe it's a little less appreciated. But I feel like that's the best way. You know, a lot of this music, different kinds of music, it's an oral tradition, and there's just not a better way than being on stage with like a great, more experienced musician than you. You learn a lot if you're open for it and you're looking to learn. Like seriously, accepting it. You're there partially to learn. You can get a lot. That's what I found in my journey so far. Yeah, and now the video in the Jerusalem Festival, it's a great band of the pianist. His name is Gadi Lehavi. Bassist is Avri Borchov, and the drummer is Eviatar Slivnik. All Israeli guys, great players. Some of them are in New York right now. Gadi and Eviatar. Avri is here. I just played a gig with him, with my band, a week ago, with Shai Maestro on piano, incredible pianist, the international pianist also from Israel, and incredible drummer, Daniel Dor, also international drummer that's here in Israel. So there's a lot of amazing musicians, jazz musicians here in Israel to play with, which is a bless. Yeah.
Great. Well, this is going to be the formal ending of Roni's presentation. This is his band playing at the Jerusalem Jazz Festival last year. And just check this out. Fantastic. Everyone, I'd like you to give a big virtual applause to Roni, and thank you so much. You've been working your guts out, doing gigs, fitting us in, and it's been a real pleasure talking to you, Roni. I've learned such a lot.
Thank you so much. If I can just say, thank you so much, Adam, really, for all the work that you put into having this happen. I really appreciate it so much, and it was such a pleasure for me to get to know you. And you're an amazing player, also inspiration to me. And thank you so much. And thank you, Pete Hewitt, and everyone at Harmonica UK that helped make this great event. Barry Elms and Gary Newman. Great pleasure for me, an honor to be here.
Thank you, Roni. Thank you, Adam. More evening. So great stuff. A round of applause for three great people here. How about that? Well done.